Let me begin with this. Most of the information I learned researching for this video. By no means do I think I know the true motives or crimes that have taken place. I'm going to lay out some information, and you take what you want from it. I began researching the mothers of slain young black men. In recent years, that would include Trayvon Martin, Tamir Rice, and a great deal of others. Not from a single mother's perspective, because most of these young men came up in a household with both parents, despite the narrative. But more or less, the closest I would be able to understand a mother's perspective and how they use the unfathomable pain to enact political change. In order to accomplish this, I would undoubtedly have to begin with the horrendous murder of Emmett Till and the steps his mother took to fuel the civil rights movement. Well, things quickly took a sharp turn into left field. See, in order to understand the mother, I would have to understand the father's role and or his life. Some would say this story will prove that Emmett Till was just like his father, maybe a womanizer. See, I question whether Emmett's father was just like him, the end result of a racist society who utilized young black men as scapegoats and punching bags for their fragile egos. After all, who's going to say differently in the Jim Crow era? This is a quick overview of important factors in the life and death of Emmett Till, his father, Louis Till, and his mother, Mamie Till. Resistance. The refusal to accept or comply with something, or the attempt to prevent something by action, while those who survived their particular resistance were hailed as heroes, far and few between would actually survive. Becoming part of a resistance required selflessness, fearlessness, and the mental fortitude of a lion. Never retreat, never surrender, and never relinquish control of your beliefs. Welcome to the resistance. The father. Born February 7th, 1922, the father of Emmett Till, Louis Till, grew up as an orphan in Missouri. Louis would find work at the Argo Corn Company but pursued an amateur boxing career. He would find love at 17 years old after meeting Mamie, who was the same age, although her parents did not approve. According to Mamie's parents, Louis was too sophisticated for their simple southern daughter from Mississippi. Louis and Mamie would ultimately get married in October of 1940 at the age of 18. The newlyweds will welcome their first child a year later, but the happiness would end shortly thereafter once Mamie learned of her husband's unfaithfulness. Louis would choke Mamie until she lost consciousness, but she would wake up and throw scalding hot water at her husband. The domestic violence will only increase to the point Mamie would have to obtain a restraining order. With few options left, a judge will require Louis to choose between imprisonment and enlisting in the U.S. Army. He would enlist in 1943. Louis would be chosen to serve in the Italian campaign, but even war wouldn't be the worst. Louis and a fellow soldier would be accused and arrested by military police for the rape of 2 Italian women and the murder of another. In short succession, Louis and the other soldier, McMurray, would be court-martialed, found guilty, and sentenced to death by lynching. They would both die on the 2nd of July, 1945. One of the greatest problems with the whole situation is the fact that his wife, regardless of the state of affairs, was not really even given real information on his death, only that he died due to willful misconduct. The mother, Mamie Till. We'll start the mother's life where we left off with the father. In early 1950s, Emmett Till and his mother, Mamie, would move from the South to Chicago, Illinois. Mamie would find love and marry Pink Bradley, but would divorce 2 years later. Now, we'll come back to Mamie in a moment. For now, we'll discuss the son, Emmett Till. The date is August 28th. 1955. A 14-year-old African-American kid named Emmett Till is spending his summer vacation with family down south, Money, Mississippi to be exact. See, Emmett made the grave decision to speak to a 21-year-old white woman, Carolyn Bryant, while buying candy. Carolyn was the wife of a small grocery store owner with a racist, fragile ego. Carolyn testified that Emmett grabbed her hand and said, "How about a date, baby? I've been with a white woman before." Some say Emmett may have flirted with Carolyn Bryant or whistled at her because he didn't know the quote-unquote rules of the South. Others say he didn't flirt at all and this was just an excuse to kill another young black boy. After all, why wouldn't Emmett know the rules? He's from Chicago. When questioned about Chicago, the late great Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. stated, quote, "Chicago was the most racist city in America. I digress." For those who thinks, why keep bringing up the past? Let it die with those in the past. See, Carolyn Bryant isn't dead. In fact, she currently lives in Raleigh, North Carolina as some unassuming, lovely grandmother with a past of terror. Estimated to be 87 to 88 years of age. If Emmett Till wasn't murdered, he would have just turned 80 in July. Well, long story short, back in 1955, Carolyn's husband, Roy Bryant, and his half-brother, John William, found out about the alleged incident and hunted down Emmett Till. At approximately 2:30 a.m., they arrived at the home Emmett Till was staying and kidnapped him at gunpoint. Emmett was tied up, thrown in the back of their pickup truck, and pistol whipped until he lost consciousness. There were different accounts of people hearing the young boy being brutally beaten through the night, early morning, screaming and crying for mercy. During a 1956 interview, the two murderers said their intentions weren't to kill Emmett, but rather beat him really bad. So what changed? Apparently during the assault, Emmett told the two white men he was just as good as them, and the men lost their mind. The following is a direct quote from Roy Bryant during the interview. Quote, "Well, what else could we do? He was hopeless. I'm no bully. I never hurt a nigger in my life. I like niggers in their place. I know how to work them. But I just decided it was time a few people got put on notice. As long as I live and can do anything about it, niggers are gonna stay in their place. Niggers ain't gonna vote where I live. If they did, they'd control the government. They ain't gonna go to the schools with my kids. And when niggers get close to mentioning sex with a white woman, he's tired of living. I'm likely to kill him." After tirelessly searching for Emmett, he was found 3 days later by a couple of fishermen at the Tallahatchie River. Emmett was unrecognizable, shot, swollen, and tied to a fan blade with a barbed wire. Roy Bryant and John William, who already faced kidnapping charges, now indicted on murder charges. Within a year's time, Emmett Till would be kidnapped, murdered, and his killers would be acquitted on murder charges. It should also be stated that Carolyn Bryant admitted later that she fabricated testimony that Emmett Till never made verbal nor physical advances towards her in the store. But even if he did, that wasn't worth his life. Now rewind back to the execution of Emmett Till's father. Conveniently, the Army didn't divulge any information regarding Lewis's death until after the trial of his son's murderers. Well, why would Emmett Till's murderers want Lewis's military trial and execution information out to the media? Perhaps because it would show familial predatory behavior, especially during that time period. In 2005, author John Edgar Wideman began researching information regarding Emmett Till's death and stumbled upon his father's case. Wideman wrote the Army Archival Center and filed for a Freedom of Information letter to receive all documents pertaining evidence, trial, and execution, and was immediately shocked. Wideman would go on to say, and I quote, "Slowly but surely, as I took the evidence apart and checked out dates, I found out that there were few connections, almost none. No connections that made it beyond any question of doubt that Till and McMurray had done these killings and rapes." Okay, finally we'll pick back up with the life of Mamie Till, 1955. I know it should go without saying, but Ms. Mamie Till displayed incredible strength, poise, and courage after the death of her son Emmett. Everyone told Mamie to have a closed casket and not to make a fuss about the death of her son. After all, in 1955, the South played by its own rules, and African Americans had real reason to be fearful. In Mamie's mind, she probably felt like she had zero reason to be quiet any longer. Her son and husband both met their demise at an incredibly young age. She was all that was left. Mamie insisted her son's casket remain open, stating, "I wanted the world to see what they did to my baby." And the world did just that. Tens of thousands of people came to pay their respect to the Till family, and photographs quickly circulated around the country. Mamie later toured the nation with the NAACP with a record-breaking fundraiser. 2 years later, Mamie would remarry Gene Mobley and continued her work as an activist, hoping to educate people about her son. In 1960, she would graduate from Chicago Teachers College, also known as Chicago State University. She would earn a master's degree in educational administration from Loyola University, Chicago in 1976. In 1992, Mamie listened during an interview with Roy Bryant detailing her son's murder. Unaware of Mamie listening, Roy Bryant asserted that Emmett Till ruined his life. Imagine the level of narcissism and arrogance required to make such a statement with a straight face. Someone you murdered ruined your life. Bryant would go on to say, and I quote, "Emmett Till is dead. I don't know why he can't just stay dead." Mamie's husband would die on March 18th, 2000 from a stroke. 3 years later, Mamie would pass away from heart failure at the age of 81. Her autobiography would be released the same year. Mamie and her son Emmett would be buried near each other, with her tombstone reading, "Her pain united a nation." Although Mamie was almost thrown into the life of activism, her main priority was educating the youth who lived in impoverished communities, spending 23 years of her life teaching in the Chicago public school system. Mamie also formed the Emmett Till Players, where school-aged children performed speeches by famous civil rights leaders. Throughout her life, Mamie was a highly sought-out, inspirational, and influential speaker. This has been the story of the Till family. Welcome to the resistance. Resistance. The refusal to accept or comply with something, or the attempt to prevent something by action, while those who survived their particular resistance were hailed as heroes, far and few between would actually survive. Becoming part of a resistance required selflessness, fearlessness, and the mental fortitude of a lion. Never retreat, never surrender, and never relinquish control of your beliefs. Welcome to the resistance.